Okay. All right. Well, good day, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are at. Welcome to the first education session for 2025 for Gimmal. Thank you for joining us today. Our sessions this year are still going to be the same thing. It's basically to try to enhance your expertise with our software, hopefully leaving you with some new tips and tricks. Thanks, Jeff. Jeff is my partner today. Jeff is a co-host. Jeff Tuish is going to be your subject matter expert today, going over Gimmal Discover. Today is the third and final of our three-part series on Gimmal Discover's Workflow Builder. All the other series, sessions 1 and 2, can also be found at our Gimmal YouTube channel if you've missed those. But this will be a final wrap on this. If you do have questions, we certainly welcome those. Please use the Q&A area in your Zoom to post those, and we'll be sure to answer those after the demonstration. Jeff, next slide, please. Okay, great. So we have something new for 2025. We hope, and this will be, you would feel appreciated for all your efforts for joining these sessions. We want to reward you. We are starting a Gimmal All-Star program. And basically, these are to reward you for joining the education sessions, taking part in our surveys. We do LinkedIn polls, anything related to Gimmal education. You can become an all-star and earn a fun pin from our marketing team. So you'll see more on this as we share recordings, as we invite you to sessions, but these are the ways that you can earn points. These we will be tracking. Who joins these sessions, who takes survey polls, or answer surveys, period. So trying to make it fun and reward you for everything that you are doing to participate with us. So we wanted to highlight that. Other than this, the format will be the same. We're going to do about 15 to 20 minutes of product demonstration, followed by the remainder of the session for any questions you may have. Jeff, I'm going to do a quick poll question for the group.
Okay.
And launching that now. So the question today is, how often have you had a need to copy a step or sequence within the workflow editor? So while other people were joining and those gets answered, Jeff, we'll report back on the results. I'll hand things over to you and you can begin.
Great. Thanks, Marcia. So what we're going to do today, guys, is we're going to talk about how we can copy steps and sequences within the workflow editor. So for those of you, we do use the names workflow editor and workflow builder interchangeably. They are synonymous. So if you hear that, don't be confused. They are the same thing. So why would I need to copy a step? Well, if you have written a workflow prior and you're making a new one, and all of a sudden you realize, hey, I've done this before, and instead of having to do it again, I want to be able to copy from my old one. That's what it's all about. So it's basically a shortcut to save you extra work or repetitive work that you've already done. But there are some conditions on this. Number one, I don't even have it on the slide here, but it has to be the same data source. So for instance, if I have a workflow for Windows file paths or Windows file shares, and I made up a regex or a very involved Boolean expression to do a search, that was inside a workflow for mailboxes, I can't copy that. You have to be in the same data source. You have to be in the same level of the hierarchy in the workflow. So for instance, for a Windows file share, you have the path and then the folder, then the file. You can copy from file to file, from folder to folder, from path to path, but you cannot cross that boundary. It has to be at the same level. And when you're getting ready, and I'm going to show you this, we're going to be bouncing back and forth like we have on the other two sessions with the workflow editor. I'm going to be going from the PowerPoint into the workflow editor and back and forth. So you'll be seeing that same thing. So prepare to see jumping as we go here. But I'm going to show you how we do that. And you can also move steps and also remove steps. And we're going to show a little bit about that too, on how you can move steps around as well as remove steps. And some of the gotchas you have to be concerned about with that. So I'm actually going to destroy one of my workflows, but I have a backup, but just to show you what happens if you choose the wrong thing. So with that said, I'm going to quit sharing and we're going to go into the copy steps. So you'll notice over here, I have the workflow editor displayed. if you're going to copy steps from one workflow to the next, I highly advise the best way to do that is have another instance of the workflow editor right beside it. So here's my new workflow that I am creating, and I'm going to open up the one that I want to copy from. So I'm going to look at the path, the folder. Those are pretty simple, but it's things at the file level that I want to get. So let's say that I want to copy this step. This is going out and doing a search using particular keywords. I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to copy step. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to position myself on the target workflow to the step below where I want it to be. So I'm going to right click on end. Excuse me. I'm going to click on end and paste. And then it's going to come up over here and show me what I have. I'm going to hit OK. And now I have the steps. So that's how you copy steps between workflows. But once again, it has to be file to file, folder to folder. You can't cross those boundaries. Now, if you want to go ahead and move a step. So you like, let's see if I have, let's go ahead and grab something out of this ad hoc. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it in here. So we're going to have a new step and it keeps going over to my other monitor. And then I'm going to grab a hold of this as well and put this below where I want it. So I'm going to paste it in here. So now I have, these two are out of position. I want to do this one first. Well, I have two choices. I can either move this one or I can move that one. And actually move is a copy, paste, and a delete. So I'm going to right click on set values, copy it, go down here, paste it in, say, yes, that's exactly what I want. Go up here, right click on it and say, get rid of that. And now we removed it. So that's how you move. So you're really not a true move. It is an add and delete, but it does allow you to adjust these. So that's how you do that. Now let's see how we do a remove. Now, if I wanted to remove, if it's a blue box, I can simply click on it because the blue box, remember, is a action. And I'm going to click on remove and say, are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. And I can just go up this tree if I wanted to and do this all the way up. So I can say, you know, I want to get rid of all these. Notice on the green box that there are no other steps besides end here. It's just going to say, are you sure you want to remove? I'm going to say yes. But I'm going to come over to this one, to my source one. Let me pull that over a little bit. And I'm going to right click on it here and say remove. Now that it knows, hey, you've got other things depending on this conditional, which ones do you want to keep? If I say I want to keep on true, then the pink and the blue, as we're going to see, are gone. So now I just destroyed my workflow. We're going to open it back up again. Go back over to file. I'm sorry, social security number. Now, if I right click on it and say, I want to remove and I want to keep the false, you guessed it, pink and blue are going to stay. These two blue guys are going to go away. Bye-bye. They're gone. Okay, one more time. So here's the one you got to be really careful of. No, I don't want a new workflow. And that is the third answer. So let's go back in here and I say remove. Oh, I don't want either one of those. We're going to lose all 5 of these. Goodbye. So if you had designs on keeping some of that, make sure you maybe copy it first before you remove the conditional, because it's going to take away both branches, the true and the false. So be aware of that, because that's bitten me before. And if you haven't saved your workflow prior to doing that, now you're recreating those steps, which is, in my idea, not a good time at all. So now you're going to say, okay, so I'm over here and I want to copy a sequence. If I go to social security number, in fact, let me open that back up again. So I actually have one that I didn't destroy. So here we have all these steps. I could sit here and do copy step, come over here, paste step. Well, I am way too lazy for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the start and say copy sequence. Same rules applies as copying steps. It has to be the same data source and it has to be the same level in the data source hierarchy. So I right clicked on start and said copy sequence. I'm going to go to the start here and I'm going to paste the sequence. It's going to say, what do you want to call the tab? Notice what's its name. So it's going to use that one, which is what I want. So now I just copied over the entire sequence. I didn't have to do the boxes individually. But notice here for the social security number, that is done via a go-to. If you remember last session, the pink boxes are go-tos. It's like, well, how do I do that again? Well, you actually can do this, which is pretty cool. So I can go in here and say, hey, by the way, I want to add step of go to, and let me get back over to the proper monitor. It's going to say, that's cool. What do you want to do? Well, I want to call it, because I have the OCD tendencies, I got to call it my social security number. And it's going to say, which sequence do you want to do? Look at that. It's already in the list because I copied it before. Now it makes the pink box. So this is reflecting that particular tab. So I can actually redo or replay that whole thing instead of having to do it by hand. So definitely take advantage of the copy step. Be careful with the remove step on decision boxes. And the copy sequence is going to be a big thing for you as well. So all those are going to help you in being able to expedite the processing of this. Now, keep in mind, if I had wanted to in my target, I'm going to go ahead and close out of this. I could have said, hey, I want to, this is from last session, if you recall, I'm going to go ahead and say file, save to file, and it's going to say, what do you want to call it? I'm going to give it a different name. So I actually could use that as my template for the next workflow. So I don't have to make a brand new one and copy the steps and sequences. Instead, what I could do is what I just did is basically make a new one. But what's going to happen on that is when you try to load that new one in, there's some magic happening in the background. So what happens behind the curtain? Well, I'm going to go back over to the PowerPoint, and I am going to pick up where we left off. And you're going to see we did the copy steps, the move steps, and I also even went into the copy and sequences. We didn't do remove yet, which we'll be doing next, but we're also talking about XML. So keep that in mind. If I try to save that workflow as just a new workflow and I try to copy it in, it's going to fail because there's a GUID, a Global Universal ID is what it stands for. It's a 32-character hex number. And that is what Discover is using to store the workflow. So it's saying that, hey, I already have a workflow with that name. What are you trying to do? So you would actually have two of the same name. So before we get into that, let me go back and I want to make sure that I show you the delete. So if I'm going to use the source one here. So here I have my go-tos, both for email address and social security number. And then inside each one of those, I have another go-to. So that's how these other two mask tabs are being used. And ignore that. I forgot to clean that up. So sorry about the convert size. That shouldn't be there. But now I'm in here and I say, you know what? I really don't want the social security number sequence. If I go up here and right click and say remove, it's going to say, yay, good try. You can't do that because that sequence is being used by a go-to. But now if I go back over here and say, hey, I don't want that, remove that step. Are you sure? I certainly am. And then go back in here and right click and say, get rid of that. It's gone. Now the SSN mask reference is gone. I can also go into that one and remove that sequence. So I only have the email address left. So you always have to remove the go-to call itself before removing the tab that reflects it. So make sure you do that as well. But once again, you're going to get a prompt telling you you can't do that. All right, I'm going to close this out one more time, and we're going to talk about the last part of this. So I'm going to show you some stuff under the covers here. So once again, here's the workflow. And what I did is I saved it as an XML file. And if you recall, we did this last time, I believe, is when you're in a workflow, you can save to file. And when you save the file, it's going to say it's going to be an XML. So that's how I got the XML file. So going back, I brought it open into Notepad++. So let's talk about some things you can do in here. First off, I wouldn't advise doing a whole lot in here just because if you do something bad, if you delete a character out of anything that is expecting any of these, the tags or back tags, when you try to open the workflow in the workflow editor, it's going to say, yeah, that's corrupt. I can't do that. So be very careful in here. But here's some things. If I had a workflow and I already had that same name being used and I wanted to bring it in, I could go into the XML and maybe put a 2, like you just saw it, put that at the back of it. And I have to change this GUID. So this is the ID here. So what you could actually do, and once again, don't do this a lot, but it is available to you. I wanted to show you under the covers a little bit. I'm going to take, see we have the CB right here. I'm going to flip those up. I'm going to put in instead ZY. So now I gave it a new name. I gave it a new GUID. I could save this to an XML. So save it back out of Notepad++, and then I could open it in the workflow editor and save it into my Discover instance, because to Discover, it has a different name and a different GUID. So keep that in mind. You can do that in here, but once again, I would be advised there's a lot of pieces and parts in here that you could cause yourself a lot of trouble if you start modifying. But let's go back to the workflow one time, because I wanted to show you one of my little quirks that I have. I have many, but this is one of them. And this is that the tabs right here, I say, you know what? I'm actually doing email address first. And if you start adding tabs and all of a sudden realize I don't like the order that they're in, what you can do is, unfortunately, I can't drag it. I can't move that tab over in front to get everything, in this case, alphabetized. But I want to be able to do that. Well, I'm going to go in to the XML again, and I'm going to do a Control F, and I'm going to look for the word as soon as my tab gets over where it's supposed to be. Thank you very much. I'm going to look for the word sequence, which is the name of the tab. Notice we have a sequence going back to the workflow editor. We had one for root, we had one for path, folder, file, what have you. I'm going to find next. Here's one for path. Here's one for folder. Here's one for file. Here's one for social security number. Here's one for SSN mask. And then here's my next tab. I'm going to say, that's my guy. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to highlight this whole thing, including the mask one. And I'm going to go down to the end sequence, which is the end tag. I'm going to shift delete that to get it on the clipboard, get rid of this. And then I'm going to go back up. Actually, you know what? I'm going to cheat. Let's work smart, not hard. I'm going to look back for the sequences, and I want to put it after the file sequence. So there's my social security number sequence. So let me go ahead and I put a hard enter in there, and then I do a paste. And then I say, let's save that as, and we're going to call it source 2. So what's it look like in the workflow editor? Well, if I didn't goof anything up, we should be able to see that. So let me bring this over, do a file, open from file, go to source 2. Oh, that's fun. I did break something. There you go. That's what happens when you damage something. I messed something up in there. That's the error you're going to get out of that. What you would have seen if I wouldn't have fat figured something in there is that the email address and email mask tabs would have been moved over here. So once again, can it be done? Yes. I've been asked that question a lot. Should you do it? Honestly, if you think you're going to break something, just leave it alone, because all it is organization. It really has nothing else to do with any functionality at all. So if you need help with that sometime and you say, hey, I really want to learn how to do this, let me know, and we can certainly just jump on a call real quick, and I can show you how to do it. It's pretty simple, and hopefully I actually won't mess yours up, which is why you always keep a backup of your original, of course, which is what I did. So always a good plan. But anyways, that's how you can manipulate the XML if you wanted to. Once again, you can do some things in here that I'm actually going to show you something else. If you've ever been in here and said, whoops, it's over my screen, you can actually apply filters. So this is saying, do you want to apply filters? In fact, how about we do a real life one? I'm going to go to File, and I want to look at particular files only. So on the process each, there's a filter in here, and I can say, I only want to do certain ones. And I'm going to say, it's like star.docx. Or it's like, I can just list these guys in here if I want. So that's something else that you can do. And if you open up the workflow inside of XML, you're going to notice a little pattern that's happening on this, and it'll actually let you manipulate these. But this is something I've been asked before as well, because if people put them in, they don't like the organization, can they be rearranged easily? Not inside the workflow editor, but in the XML they can. But once again, use caution on that. And if you need some help with that, I'd be happy to give you an assist. Send you a little screenshot on how to do it. But it can be done, but just be wary of trying to do it in the XML. So why did I show you the XML? Is to let you know that it is there to be used, but cautiously and very, very gently, if I may say so. Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint slides. And where are we? We are past that one. And here we are at the questions. Marcia, back over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. So you are human. You can make errors
I
too.
did make an error, and that was not intentional, by the way. I probably could lie and tell you that it was, but it was not.
No, it's good. It shows real world experience for sure.
Yep.
We do have a couple questions. There's still time if anybody has a question they would like Jeff to answer, post it in the Q&A area. Jeff, our first question is, what are the restrictions for copying a step or sequence?
Yeah, so the things you have to keep in mind is that you have to be in that same data source being OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange Mailbox, Exchange Archive. Even Exchange Mailbox and Archive you can't copy steps from one to the next. If you have two workflows and you're looking to copy a step or a sequence, same data source, same level in the hierarchy.
Okay, great. Second question we have is, what is the recommended method to copy a step or sequence?
I'm going to go with the same thing I just said
Yeah.
and bring up the two workflow editors side by side. Because what you can do is you can just start a second instance of the workflow editor. Otherwise, what you're going to be doing, say you're trying to copy 3 steps, you're going to copy 1 step, you're going to close down your source workflow, you're going to open up your target workflow, you're going to paste that step, you're going to go back to the source workflow, copy the second step. It's very tedious. If you have those two workflow editors next to each other, it just makes life a lot simpler to copy those steps to and fro.
Great. And then the final question so far, can I change the name of the workflow in the XML?
Yep, that's what I was showing you. So if you want to change the name, but keep in mind that Discover is keeping track of the name. So if you had changed, say we opened up an XML, a workflow that's already been saved in Discover, and we went to the XML and we just changed the GUID, and then we try to open it and save it, it's going to say there's already one with this name. Conversely, if you had changed the name and not the GUID, it's going to say, well, what are you doing? So both of those need to be updated. If you're going to do that, you can do that. But keep in mind that you can also have another workaround in Discover. In the workflow editor itself, you can save as a different name, which what it's doing is it's replacing the name and it's assigning a new GUID. So that also is another way of doing it, and probably a better way, honestly.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's all the questions, but here's the answer from our poll we started earlier. For those who joined late, the question was, how often have you had a need to copy a step or sequence within the workflow editor? I found this kind of amusing. I'm sure you will, Jeff, too. All the answers were in the can I copy a step or sequence and never, thank goodness. So I
Awesome.
appreciate, yeah, I don't think we're shocked by that, but we
No, not at all.
appreciate everybody taking the time to participate in that. So Jeff, next slide, please. Yeah, great. Okay, so yeah, that's our session today, everybody. I wanted to highlight, of course, our schedule for all of Q1 for 2025. Again, emails went out for this. Reminder emails will go out before the week before each session. If you haven't signed up, you can always go to our Gimmal events page as well. We have those posted there. That will be another way you can register. Or if you have colleagues at your organization that you think should be part of these, feel free to send those to them. Other ways for your ongoing education with your Gimmal products, we send out monthly tech tips. There are self-service tutorial videos, and certainly our online documentation at our doc site. So if you weren't sure of all these items available to you, they are. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or your account manager or your other CSM. Anybody here will point you in the right direction. Again, this is a recorded session. All of our past recordings can be found on our YouTube channel at gimmalsolutions.com. I also chatted our survey. If you would like to give feedback on today's session and earn some Gimmal All-Star points, please do take that. We really appreciate your feedback and ideas for future sessions. So that's a wrap. We will see you next time. Thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.